Hello, everybody. I'm Michael Morroco.
And I'm Bobby Salvesen. We are the Hazmat Guys, bringing you knowledge and insight to make your job a little bit easier and safer.
Let's take a minute to hear about today's sponsors.
Hey, have you heard about the Decon Field Guide?
Oh, yeah. The First Line Technologies, the DFG, has everything that I'm looking for in the field of emerging threats.
Yeah, the DFG has a brand new look with updated time-saving resources such as instructional videos, guidance documents, dwell timings, FAQs, even a ton more than that.
You're preaching to the choir, man. I've already been using the guide documents and the instructional videos on a bunch of classes that we're teaching throughout the country.
Yeah, so simply download the Decon Field Guide app to your smartphone or tablet to access the full threat library, step-by-step instructions, and instructional videos. Download the Decon Field Guide app today. You can find it on the Apple App Store or Google Play.
Let's get to the show.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode. Episode 250, quarter way to 1,000.
We're right there.
We're so close. I could taste it.
You think we'll hit 1,000?
I hope not.
Me
I hope I'd
neither.
be dead by then.
Oh, my God. I don't
This
know
is
if I want
5 years. That would be 20 years of broadcasting.
20 years.
Yeah,
20
one
years.
a week.
Yeah. Yeah.
I hope we can pass it on. By then.
Definitely. Like maybe next week.
Like, yeah, so if anybody wants to buy. Oh, my God. Could you imagine that?
That would be cool.
Yeah, whatever. That's, whatever. That sounds good. Good times.
So, we're getting closer and closer to October. Are we hearing anything about Cold Zone?
No.
No.
Nothing new on that front. The Cold Zone front, get it? But I don't really think there's anything really going on. It's kind of quiet still.
Yeah,
We did get a lot of feedback back from the last episode, I will say that.
Yeah, the radiation one, right?
Yeah, a lot of stuff.
That's good.
It's good.
It's good. Oh, feedback is always good. Feedback. Well, I'm hoping. So this is our 250th episode. Generally, we have always stuck with the idea that you listen to the show and you walk away with a little bit clearer understanding of something. And today, I think everybody's going to walk away more confused than ever.
Awesome.
And Bob doesn't. I'll tell you right now, Bob doesn't have a clue what's about to happen.
No,
So,
I have no idea.
He's sitting there, and I refuse to tell him anything because I really wanted to pick apart an argument. I wanted to have an actual argument, a discussion, and thought processes. Now, I'm going to tell you right now that we are basically not even pretending, we're interpreting as best as we can today some very finite laws.
And
And
my favorite.
yeah, it's really, really interesting. So I'm going to try to set this up the best I can, and I want to talk about a bunch of different responses that I got back to this question, and then kind of talk about how and if they relate to what it is that we're talking about. So as most of you know, me and Bob, we teach all over the place, and we always say, anytime somebody asks you a question, be like, I don't know, I'm going to find out. And here's the question that was posed to me. All right, so first off, what is the difference between an operations level and a technician?
3 inches. No,
Like
offensive versus defensive.
Offensive versus defensive. Okay, good. So describe to me, in your opinion, because I think some of this kind of like turns around to opinion, what would differentiate an offensive from a defensive?
All right, so the way I always teach this thing is awareness are the guys that go, hey, there's something going on over there. Everybody stay back. Call 911. That's so they are like incredible. That's industry. That's not us. Once you get onto a responding vehicle, cop car, fire truck, whatever it might be, now you have to upgrade to operations, which gives you defensive quality. So I can utilize the ERG, I can do identification, I can hold people back, but I am who they call. Right?
Okay.
So Where it starts getting muddy is when we start going into these mission-specific competencies. And that's where it almost melds into an offensive role, which is the wheelhouse of the technician level guys.
Okay, so in our understanding of mission specific, you have to kind of be under the direction of a technician for the stuff that you've been trained on, but you're still not doing offensive work, right? Like
No, but like if you look at metering specifically, like just
Okay.
talk about that one competency, in order to meter, you have to be in the area, which means you went offensive.
which means you went offensive. Okay, so then what about mitigation?
Mitigation, well, see, I would give a little more credence because metering I can do from a doorway. Doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to be in some type of ideal H area. Whereas mitigation, in my opinion, is much more up close and personal, which means I'm more likely to be in that ideal HP, which now may take me out of my mission specific competency of like, I don't have the PPE. I don't understand the PPE. I don't have, so like.
Okay. So then here is the question. Where do we justify allowing operations level firefighters to walk into a structure, deal with a gas leak, and deal with a CO emergency? Because and then the finite parts of this is whatever argument you give has to be able to expand and contract. So I need to be able to take your justification and expand it to other things. So I posed this question on the internet because somebody asked me this question. They said, where's the legal justification for allowing operations level people to go and like mitigate a CO run in a house? Because they're becoming involved with the product. Yes, they have the proper training on the meter, and there are SOPs in place, but is there really a legal argument, or is there really legal standing to allow them to do that? And if so, where does that line get drawn? At what point do you say, no, that hazardous material is not considered something that you're allowed to do, but this hazardous material is?
Oh, you're saying breaking it down by the actual
I'm looking for any kind of a breakdown. I'm looking for now we do CO emergencies so often, and we do natural gas emergencies so often, and even spills of gasoline on the roadway. In reality, we don't think about it as hazardous material, but it is technically hazardous material. So if I turn around and I go, well, it's okay because it's residential, then I never need a technician in a residential area? It's okay because it's a gas, or, because my PPE protects me. Well, so if it's some other funky chemical that is only flammable, you never need a technician. Because the bunker gear is the PPE of most first responder operations. Like, so I started diving into this weird world, and when the person first posed the question, I was like, well, that's so stupid. Like, freaking firefighters, we go in, we deal with natural gas, we turn it off. But then it was like, well, wait a second, but we're coming in contact with the product. We're not being deconned. We're on SCBA. We're technically doing offensive operations as a defensive player.
Right, because operations level people can shut off something remotely. So if we went down to the basement of that building and shut off the gas main for that apartment or the complex, that would be soundly in the operations level guides.
Right.
I would have no problem arguing that one out. But now I go in. See, where does it end? Because, like, what if I open a window?
Right. Yes, that's an operation that could be defensive as long as you're not in the product. but it's offensive if you're dealing with the product. But then we get into this weird world of like, okay, but in firefighting, you're surrounded, right? I'm going to go through a bunch of the comments online, and I want to kind of like talk about them and work them out.
Okay.
But, that was kind of one of the comments was, well, you're in the PPE for that product, so you don't need additional training. And I was like, I don't really feel comfortable with that because I can throw a number of other hazardous materials that are flammable that we wouldn't want operations level people to be playing with.
Right. And what if the toxicity is... man, I don't like that answer.
Yeah. So, all right, let's go down the toxicity route. You said toxicity. Remember, a legal argument needs to be able to expand and contract and be, be versatile.
Well, I'll give you an example. Like in class, like on maybe day 3 of our technician level class, and they're starting to get into researching, and they have an understanding of flammability, and they have an understanding of toxicity, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So what we'll do is we'll have a drill, and we will give them, 6 groups a chemical. And we'll give them, okay, you guys got, carbon monoxide. You guys have, hydrogen sulfide. You guys have formaldehyde. You guys have, and everybody starts looking it up, and 20 minutes of research and digestion and stuff like that. And we go, okay, what's the PP? And almost every single one of these chemicals, they come back as level A. They're coming back as incredibly toxic. They come back as all this stuff. And I go, okay, this is a typical fire.
Right.
So now what? And this is the discussion. We have this discussion in class. I'm like, so why do every single group here just said level A response for the individual chemicals? And I'm saying, okay, I make you a soup of them, and now you're totally cool with wearing firefighting gear for what just 30 seconds ago you told me was a level A response.
Right.
Why?
Right. And it's not so much the why. Like, I get culturally the why. I get historically the why. I get all of that. I get how, a county or a department couldn't possibly expect a hazmat team to go shut off every gas leak in the city or, in their county or in their state, or a CO leak in their county or in their state. But if somebody were to get hurt, were they technically operating outside of the law?
I don't think this has ever been exposed.
I don't think...
And that's from all the arguments I've heard, I don't even think they know that they can't ask that question.
I agree. So I posed this question online, and I got a lot of really, really great feedback. And some of the arguments were good, and some of them were just like, didn't have anything to do with what I said. But... I'd like to discuss a few of these things because, like, as a firefighter who's just always done this is a hard question to answer because we've just always done it. So naturally, we want to be like, no, it's fine.
But why?
But why?
Why
right?
is it fine?
So one person said, you read my mind. I have an huge issue with this. I'm a firm believer in ops have limited scopes. 20-pound propane tanks, diesel spills under certain gallons, and maybe CO. I'm a huge believer in hazmat techs for more. So he believes this, but there's nothing in the standard. And there was a couple of things that were like, well, we allow for 20-pound propane tanks. People can play with 20-pound propane tanks. There's nothing in a standard or the law that sets the certification to deal with a product based on the amount of the product.
Right. Propane works the same whether you have it in a 20-pound propane cylinder or a rail car. It is still propane, and the vessel is different, but I wouldn't be any more comfortable working on a 20-pounder than I would be on a rail car. The quantity doesn't really matter.
Right. And the hazard doesn't matter. As far as I can tell, the only thing that matters is offensive versus defense. And what we've always described as being in the product and not being in the product. So I took this question and I brought it to, where else would you go in today's age? Facebook. But we
It's like wiki pages.
yeah. Like like WikiLeaks. No. But there's the Hazmat 2 group on Facebook, and tons of people that I have nothing but respect for. So I threw this question out, and I got a lot of different answers, and I would like to go through some of them with you, just to see, like, does that make sense? Does that not make sense? Could that be? Could it not be? And there was one that was probably the closest, but oddly enough, it seemed to only answer the question for industry, not for first responders.
Okay.
All right, so I would like to anybody that's listening to this that remembers this conversation, which was literally, it's been like a 2.5, 3-day conversation on the Facebook 2 group. Thank you for all of yours. I am not going to use names because social media policies throughout the country are different, and some people used very specific examples in their department. So I won't use any kinds of names. For those of you that directed me to 49 CFR 1910-120, EPA 165, and NFPA 472, thank you. Was not exactly what I was looking for. I was looking for something very, very, very specific. Some people said, one person said, if you provide appropriate training for the product and the PPE needed to safely handle the product, either ops or technician can perform the task. He tried to remember where it was cited, but he wasn't 100% sure. So, what's your thoughts on that?
I don't think I agree with that. I think it's clearly laid out in 472 what those mission specific competencies. I want to say in Chapter 6 what they are, and I don't think anything. Well, read it again. It was
Okay.
It was that the PPE.
Yeah. So, well, it's two things. One, I agree with one, and the other I don't. So if you provide appropriate training for product and PPE needed to safely handle the product, either ops or technician can perform the task. And
Well, yeah, okay.
but it's
Okay,
not
I'm hearing you.
mission specific is not product specific. Mission specific
Right.
is meters, life safety, fire, like vapor suppression, like things along the decon. Those are mission specific things. Nowhere in mission specific does it dictate that operations can become offensive with a product.
All right, so I just don't think it's in the same section. So I think he's quoting a part in the confined space standard, which I think is 1910-146, where if I own a perfume factory, let's say, and my workers need to clean out the vats and drums, I can train them for alcohols and ketones and whatever else they use there and give them the appropriate PPE. But I don't think that is for emergency response.
Okay. All right. So that would actually make sense. Okay.
Yeah.
But yes, definitely not for industry, but not necessarily for response.
Yeah.
Then somebody said, well, being supervised by a technician with the equipment. So obviously with that, with what we're speaking of, not everybody's going to have a technician, wandering around with them. NFPA 472 mission specific means ops level personnel can go beyond their training as long as they are trained in that particular category. Decon, PPE, evidence collection, etc.
Yeah, I think he worded it a little off, but yeah, they're not going beyond their training if they are trained. Right. So
Right,
if
Go ahead.
I'm just saying, if I was the authority having jurisdiction and said I need guys to be able to meter and monitor, then I would buy them the equipment they need, train them in the equipment they need, advise them of the hazards of doing what they need, and give them guidance on how I want it done. And then I think they would be trained in that. They're not going beyond their training; they're being trained to the addition.
Can an AHJ? Let's just switch the chemical. Let's now switch the chemical. We can do mission specific for PPE. We can do mission specific for decon. We can do mission specific for meters. Now I have a chlorine leak. Can an ops level person do that if their department?
No, I think it's now outside the bounds.
Why?
It's like I'm thinking again. This is not emergency response, but it kind of is. It's like let's say a gas company, an underground compressed natural gas company. They deal with one commodity. They have PPE, they have metering, they have training, they have everything they need. If they were to be tasked with going to an ammonia leak or something like that, I don't think they would be prepared for that. I think there would be they don't have the meters for it. They don't have the know-how. They don't know how the chemical works. It is completely out of their wheelhouse. And I don't think you could possibly train everybody for every eventuality, but I think this is kind of where emergency services split from industry or confined spaces, that when I work in a facility and I know what's in that facility, there's rarely an emergency where I got to get into that hopper, that strainer, that skimmer, whatever it might be, and get in there like right now. So I had the luxury of getting the permit filled out. I had the luxury of getting the chemicals all figured out, ventilation set up.
So let's look at it from a fire department first responder point of view. Can the fire department, following what this person's logic was, right? That means that I can then take an ops level person, train them in PPE, train them in meters, train them how to put on a chlorine A kit, and send them down to go do a chlorine mitigation.
All right. So yes, I think you can. I think you can do it for that all hazard, and I think here's the way I'm thinking I would do it. So if I was telling them, I want my operations level guys to be PPE, right? And I wouldn't just tell them, hey, I'm only showing you how to use the level A. I'm going to show them how to use the level B, the level A, the level C, the contamination suits, the whatever, all my PP. It doesn't come down to them knowing how to pick the suit. That's the technician's job. Their job is to get in the suit.
So they still have to be supervised by a technician.
Yeah, I think and I think that says it in there.
Yes, it does. 100%. Right? So
yeah.
This logic follows that a technician is there. When we go back to the original question of first responder operations going into a structure with a gas leak or into a structure with carbon monoxide leak, there's no technician there. They are mitigating a chemical in the product, doing offensive operations at an ops level.
Yeah.
And I'm not like going to suddenly start trying to fight for this is just, it's one of those weird glitches that we've always done. But an interesting question is, let's say a guy gets messed up at a CO run or a natural gas leak. And he turns around and he goes, well, I was operating outside of what OSHA says I can operate at. Is his officer liable? Is the chief liable? Is there a moment where it's like, oh, crap, like I told that guy to operate above the law and above the standard?
All right, so I'm trying to put myself in the position of the AHJ saying, okay, why have we done this? Why would we do this? And here's where I'm gonna take a stab at this one.
Okay.
All right, so I would fall, if I was the AHJ and somebody came to me and brought this to me, and I'd be like, well, the typical thing you'd say is, well, it's a paradigm. We've always done it this way, right? And because of that, I think full cultural support of that evolution being done in this manner, and us quoting scripture on both OSHA and NFPA, I think that remember, NFPA is a consensus standard.
Right.
I don't think there will be one single person. First off, they don't enforce the law; they just suggest a guideline. But I don't think there will be one single person that would be against it, because they've all done it. So you'd be hard-pressed on that side to do it.
Yes, the standard side I agree with you on. I think if you put 12 firefighters in a room and said, do you think it's unreasonable to go in and shut down an appliance producing carbon monoxide if the levels are whatever they are?
Well, that's where it gets sticky because OSHA really doesn't have that kind of guidance. It
Well,
doesn't really tell you what you can and can't. It doesn't have mission-specific competencies.
No, it doesn't. It does say, I believe OSHA does say defensive operations and offensive operations.
Right.
Right, which is where I'm trying to see
Where that line is?
Where that line is. Like,
I don't
know
think
this
there
is
is.
such,
I think it's ambiguous.
I don't think there is either. There is some stuff that suggests other things. So I'm going to jump to this. The closest I could get, and I'm going to give him credit because I've been talking with him a little bit, is Jason Ricky.
Okay.
He says, and I'm pretty sure this is a copy and paste, right? 1910-120 A3 definitions. Emergency response or responding to emergencies means a response effort by employees from outside the immediate release area or by other designated responders to an occurrence which results or is likely to result in an uncontrolled release of a hazardous substance. Response to incidental releases of hazardous substance where the substance can be absorbed, neutralized, or otherwise controlled at the time of the release by the employee in the immediate release area or by maintenance personnel are not considered to be emergency responses within the scope of the standard. Responses to releases of hazardous substance where there's no potential safety or health hazard are not considered to be an emergency response. So the closest, all right, so one, this definitely covers industry. And then I was like, okay, but this doesn't really touch us, but it does because that last line, response to release of hazardous substance in which there is no potential safety or health hazard is not deemed an emergency response. So if I have a stove leaking gas and I walk in and I'm not reading anything on my meters, maybe that is not considered an emergency response.
I will buy that for $1, as RoboCop said.
I will buy that.
I would
for
buy
$1.
that. That's a good, because you can make the argument that we as well are employees, even though I don't care if you're a volunteer, I don't care if you're paid professional, whatever, you're an employee. It just matters on what side of the desk you're sitting on. So if you're the industry employee versus I'm the response employee, but if we haven't reached a threshold of realized threat, then it's not an emergency and therefore it doesn't pertain. That's actually a very good argument.
Isn't that real? Like, I found that after literally like almost 24 hours of going back and forth, he posted this and I was like, oh my God, I think this is it.
That's it. That's it. That's why.
That's why. So
Thank you, Ricky Bobby.
It was Jason Ricky.
Thank you, Ricky Bobby. You'll be first in my book.
So I would really, and this conversation has continued to keep going. I even ended up rewording it and reposting it because I don't think people understood exactly what I was going for the first time. And the responses have been phenomenal. Anybody who thinks they have something better that will justify sending firefighters into situations like that, please let me know. This was a question that boggled my mind, and I don't know if that's the answer, but that is probably the closest I think we're going to get to being able to justify it.
I think it's a valid. Answer. I'll hang my hat on that one.
Me too.
Well, that wraps up another episode of the Hazmat Guys.
You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and our YouTube channel at The Hazmat Guys, and take a moment to call our comment hotline at 843-628-1484.
And we are always looking forward to your feedback about information or interesting incidents that you were a part of, so send us a note at feedback@thehazmatguys.com.
Remember, guys, don't just get on the job, get into the job.